Hello, people. So, a couple of weeks ago, I read this book, Minority Raw by Ash Sarkar, Adventures in the Culture War, and it has a brand new afterword. Ash Sarkar is quite famous. She works for Novara Media. She's been on lots of TV shows, and she lectures at some university in Holland, I think. Very smart lady. And I was quite excited to see that she'd written a book. So once I saw the paperback in foils, I went straight ahead and bought it. The book is brilliant. Um, Her use of language is very good, very relatable. She's obviously very smart, knows what she's talking about. She uses humor very well, but she uses it in a way that helps to make the point or softens the blow. You know, when you have to take something with a pinch of salt. Yeah, her turn of phrase, her word craft is really, really good. I love it. More than that, though, the book really does open your eyes to what's happening in the UK, in the US, mainly in the UK because she's UK based. She's from North London. And what's the overall thing I got from the book is just how the ruling classes really are afraid of everybody else uniting, um, and how racism has always been a very, very useful tool for them. More so in the last 15 years or so, in the last 14 years or so. And how people who write for publications like The Telegraph, The Sun, have done so much to damage the lives of ordinary people in Britain. Um, and ordinary people in this case are the majority of people, the people who have to work for a living. Uh, so, one of the things that was quite revealing for me about this book is how before 2011, when there were lots of riots in Tottenham, other parts of the UK, Birmingham as well, I think, because police shot and killed a man. Um, I think his name was Mark Duggan. I'm doing this from memory, so apologies if that's wrong. Half Jamaican, half Irish. And then The Sun and all the other papers, ran pictures of him looking really menacing. And what nobody told you was that picture was a cutout of a picture where he was standing at the grave of his infant child. That's why he looked upset and menacing. And then all these lists were produced about how he's the most wanted, terrorist or gangster in Europe or something. Absolute bullshit. But it was all done to sell this story, and that a bad man had been killed. A bad man had been killed, and whether he was a bad man or not, I don't think he was. He was just shot by police. But what's really horrible is, and really really revealing is how that death was just exploited, used by the political classes, used by the newspapers, and a big player here was the Sun. When Tony Blair came to power in the late 90s, Rupert Murdoch, and he basically signed a deal where Blair would not interfere with or get in the way of any of Murdoch's business interests, and Murdoch's papers would therefore, blow the trumpet for Blair. Oh, he's great, and this and that, and etc. etc. Both less than nice people, if you ask me. So the kind of racism that poured out, really horrible racism, which if you'd think, God, well, what is this? Led to people, being stabbed, beaten, mainly refugees from places like Afghanistan or anywhere really. It's not like these racists really discriminate. They can't tell the difference between a Sikh and a Muslim. Most of them retards. But before that, there was this whole thing about the working class. The papers, the elites, and everyone would really, oh, the working class, oh, they're lazy, they're idle, they live off benefits. And then you had characters like Vicky Pollard, and writers in the Telegraph would write things like, we're being overrun by, what was the line? Pasty faced, lard bellied sluts who'll drop their knickers for anyone and have babies when they should be having jobs. This is the kind of stuff they come out with, and yes, we write for the Telegraph, so we're perfectly highbrow. They're a bunch of assholes. The Telegraph is for people who think they're too sophisticated for the Daily Mail and GB News, but the Telegraph is even worse, right? And anyway, politically, what happened after that? So there's all this rubbishing of the working class and, these cheap white people and everything. And then after the riots caused by the murder of this gentleman Duggan, I think it was Ian, I think it was Mark, I'm not remembering correctly. What happens is the ruling class realizes, oh shit, when they get together, they can cause a lot of trouble. So what happens after that is they start dividing them. So now you get this invention. No longer are there lard-bellied, uh, you know, pasty-faced sluts who'll drop their nicks for anyone. Now there's this great group of people, the white working class, and anybody who causes trouble for the country, i.e., immigrants. Always blame the immigrants. Benefit scroungers. They make things harder for the working class, not the elites who were previously calling you pasty-faced sluts. Yeah. And so now it's about turn these people against each other so they can't unite and turn against us, because when they unite and turn against us, we're in trouble. So that's one of the major learnings that came from this. And I read it a few weeks ago, but it really is a brilliant book. I'm going to read you the back of the book. Minority ruled, noun, an irrational fear fueled by right-wing pundits, lobby journalists and billionaires that minority groups are displacing majority populations. That's the wider context with this book. We all know that the modern world is in crisis, but it's not just a crisis for the climate or of living standards, it's a blame crisis. Whether it's infighting on the left or the demonization of immigrants on the right, there's always a new talking point to distract us from real systemic change. Now is the time to realize that we have been duped into fighting with each other. Let that sink in. Now is the time to redirect our outrage towards those who deserve it. In Minority Rule, political commentator Ash Sarkar offers a sharp and lively reality check. Whether it's exposing the origins of the white working class or examining how non-events have taken over journalism, this book, now with a brand new afterword, will help you break the blame cycle for good. If leftists feel they have been stumbling around in the darkness, Minority Rule flicks on the light. That's by The Standard. Clear, concise, witty. This book will help you see through the bullshit. That's by Grace Blakely, author of Vulture Capitalism. Brilliant book. I like Grace Blakely. Delivers its message with punch and panache. A joy to read. The Guardian. One of the other things she points out in here is how a lot of those popular figures in culture, in media, like Ali G, clearly a white dude, who always used to say, is it because I'm black? Or Vicky Pollard used to say, is it because I'm black? And both the people who designed those characters went to private schools, by the way, so they are part of the ruling class, so to speak. I've read in other books about the racism of what's the guy's name, Sacha Baron Cohen, and his co-stars in writing things like the movies he makes and everything. But anyway, what else was I going to say? It's a really good book, and the more of these kind of books you read, the more it starts making sense about why morons like why right-wing populists get into power. I mean, their game's falling apart now because as people are becoming more educated and actually saying, actually they're full of crap, they're full of lies, and really they just work for the elites. They go on about Nigel Farage going on about the working man and everything. He'd turn you all into slaves like that if he could. One of the biggest hypocrites. They're all hypocrites. But it's a great book. I'm actually forgetting what I was going to say about it because I've read about 2 books since then. But I thoroughly recommend it. One of the boldest, most exciting thinkers of her generation by Naomi Klein, author of Doppelganger. She talks about her own experiences growing up in the 90s in North London, where people would piss all over her front door and put lit cigarettes through the letterbox just because she's Bangladeshi. She talks about the abuse she gets online with people saying things like she likes being colonized between the sheets because she's married to a white guy. That's disgusting. It really is. And this isn't like when Israel says something is disgusting because they get caught for a massacre or something. Or something else I found out was AIPAC, this is unrelated, but just because I mentioned Israel, AIPAC was started in the 1950s to prevent bad press after Israeli commandos massacred about 60 Palestinians. Yeah. But of course, it all began in 2023. Anyway, really good book. I've got a few more reviews coming. I thoroughly recommend this book. I thoroughly recommend anything by Ash Sarkar. I think she's brilliant. Um, a good point she makes in this is, look, it's all very well having, having a mission, trying to improve lives, trying to improve the world, but you have to set up an organization. You have to set up something that will endure if something happens to you. So with her, there's and her colleagues, there's Navarra Media. She says if she was to be hit by a bus tomorrow, there's a whole team that would carry on her mission. What is the mission? I mean, it's not explicitly stated, but I think it's just about getting people to see that most of the political parties don't work for the people. There's a good book on that called Democracy for Sale, which I haven't read yet, but I want to read. The clues in the title, and yeah, build something that lasts. One person can make a bit of change, but it's better if they work with other people. I'm going to leave it at that because I have to get ready for work. Oh, here's a great one about work, having a job. Even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. So I'll leave it at that. Hope you enjoyed that. That's Minority Raw Adventures in the Culture War with a brand new afterward by Ash Sarkar. 10 out of 10.